Hello there and welcome to World Panorama, your weekly roundup of the top international stories of the week. I'm Tracy Shilshi. Let's start the show with the headlines. United States President Donald Trump says his first 100 days have been about the most successful in history, but polls otherwise. With less than 40% approval rating, Trump as president scores the lowest in modern polling history. Tensions escalate in the Korean peninsula as the controversial missile defense system THAAD is stationed by the US in the South Korea. North Korea test fires another ballistic missile. China plays mediator between both sides. And France shows deep divide in its choice for the next president. Centre-left Macron to take on anti-EU and anti-Islam far-right candidate Marine Le Pen in the final round of the elections. Our top focus. US President Donald Trump completed 100 days in the White House on Saturday, and on the eve of reaching the milestone, President Trump said this landmark timeline has been the most successful in US history. In just 14 weeks, Trump said that his administration has brought profound change to Washington.
My fellow Americans, I truly believe that the first 100 days of my administration has been just about the most successful in our country's history. Most importantly, we're bringing back jobs. Since my inauguration, economic confidence has soared, reaching higher than any time in 9 years. Optimism among manufacturers is at a record high, and small business confidence has seen its largest increase in nearly 4 decades. Perhaps the greatest change of all is the renewal of the American spirit.
Well, Trump may be most enthusiastic about his achievements so far, but reactions across the US and the world seem mixed. Approval ratings for the US president is at a low of 32% among young Americans. Here's a look at some of his controversial decisions and how a few of them backfired as well. The 100 days of an American president's term traditionally marks the end of the honeymoon period, a time to take stock of early achievements, launch new legislations, and set a new direction. But the scorecard for Donald Trump's first 100 days does not read well. Approval ratings for Trump is at a low of 32% among young Americans, and just 46% of Americans feel he has lived up to his campaign promises.
What's on his plate? He knows what, his expectations have been somewhat managed as far as what he thought taking that office was going to be like and what it is in actual reality. But the things that are on his plate today might change overnight tomorrow as far as, some issues that he has to address.
One of the issues he has successfully addressed just before the 100-day mark was taxes. Trump proposed deep tax cuts for many businesses, though the one-page plan offered no detail on how it would be paid for without increasing the deficit.
We are going to cut taxes and simplify the tax code by taking the current 7 tax brackets we have today and reducing them to only 3 brackets: a 10% bracket, a 25% bracket, and a 35% bracket.
When Trump was elected in November, Republican lawmakers joined his call to dismantle Obamacare in the first 100 days of his presidency. But Trump's attempt to do so ended in an embarrassing collapse in Congress. So did his funding request for a U.S. border wall with Mexico. He faced further embarrassment when a few courts thwarted his orders to ban foreign nationals from several mainly Muslim countries.
People feel the current administration is not reflecting the American values that people fled countries to come in and live under. So that's been the general sentiment and disappointment to the American values that everyone respects.
India too has faced some worry. First, when Trump gave sweeping powers to security forces to check illegal immigrants, and recently a proposal to tighten H-1B visa rules. Details are still sketchy, and India is constantly in touch with US authorities. On the moral front as well, Trump faced backlash globally when he retaliated to the deadly April 4th chemical attack in Syria with a direct missile strike on Syrian government airfields. But the Congress is still hopeful.
I think the president's doing just fine with what he is promoting. I like the congressional review actions. I like the strike in Syria. I like the bunker buster bomb in Afghanistan. I like the more assertive foreign policy.
The big challenge he faces in the coming days is the North Korea situation. With a THAAD anti-missile system propped up in the south, Trump is in constant touch with President Xi Jinping of China, who has tried to calm tensions between the US and North Korea, but to little effect, as a sixth North Korean nuclear test may not be far away.
There's a chance that we could end up having a major conflict with North Korea. Absolutely.
If Trump's first 100 days prove anything, it's that politics is not business, and he still has much to learn and achieve. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. All right, so talking us through this big story, 100 days of Trump, and how India, of course, is viewing it, and of course the other global nations as well. Let's talk to Dr. RAGHUBANSH Sinha, who's a Deputy News Editor with the Hindustan Times. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. According to you, how do you think he's managed so far? The day of inauguration, we saw those protests, and they were quite landmark in a sense, for an inauguration of a US president. And since then, there have been quite a few, like even in the story we've pointed out, he's tried to change a lot of things, a few of them backfiring. How would you gauge these 100 days?
You see, Donald Trump came to office with the lowest approval rating when he took office on 20th January. And today also, with less than 40%, he's perhaps at this stage where no president has ever been for decades in the last, several years. So I think, his approval rating is really low. But when you look at the work that Trump has done, I think, America today is a highly divided country. And for his supporters, I think Trump would have done well because he's pushing very hard with all the electoral promises that he made.
Yes.
They may seem very rhetorical to us. Say, for example, immigration ban, talking about, America first, pulling out of, Environmental Protection Act, and then also trying to overturn the Obamacare, whether he has succeeded in building a wall or not. But he's talking about it every day.
Yes.
So for his supporters, Donald Trump has shown how difficult a place Washington is.
Yes.
So he's trying very hard. But for those of his critiques, I think they would point out that they have been proved right, that he does not have the material to be the US president.
Yes.
Whether it is on the domestic front, he has not been able to pass a single legislation. Whether it is on the international front, everyone is still trying to find out what his policies are all about.
Yes.
And whether it is, taking U-turn on NATO, whether taking a U-turn now on NAFTA, or taking a U-turn on China, whom he had called, currency manipulator. And he would have, according to his campaign promise, supposed to have taken very tough line on China.
Yes.
But today he calls Mr. Xi Jinping a hard-working president who is working hard to solve several problems, particularly on the North Korean peninsula. So I think it's a mixed bag.
Yes.
For his critique, he has done terribly performance, and for his supporters, they would feel very happy that, look, he is making attempt in a very difficult circumstances.
That's and when you say about difficult circumstances, you've of course talked about the allies as well. We understand he's had 16 meetings with world leaders, no foreign visits though, and everyone's waiting to see when that happens and which particular country is he going to choose first when he goes somewhere. But out of those 16 meetings with world leaders, 5 of them have been of leaders of the Middle East. How are people viewing that? Because we do know that as far as Obama was concerned, he was very cautious. And also, it was a tense time during his period. Of course, you had Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, you had all of that. Syria began as well. And now, Trump has taken over and is, hoping to try and continue, but at the same time, bring back the troops as well, which is obviously a tough balance. How are people viewing that?
Well, people are still trying to gauge what his foreign policy is all about. But what is good about it is that he is not going ahead with many of his rhetorical foreign policy announcements that he's done. He's coming back to the very conventional style of American foreign policy. Though he talked about, disengaging from, the Korean Peninsula, not trying to be the international policeman. But, now slowly and steadily, whether it is in North Korea, whether it is in Syria, or whether it is other parts, he's coming back to the, conventional American foreign policy. And that actually would, provide a semblance of satisfaction to many people around the world. That, he's not going to upset the entire established foreign policy of the United States. Because the international analysts, prime ministers, presidents, they are all looking for indications. And the indications now coming out is that he's slowly and swiftly shifting his position from his campaign rhetoric to a more practical kind of foreign policy that America has always followed. So that would be a certain amount of satisfaction for many people around the world.
And as far as India is concerned, we do know that headache, that worry about H-1B visas, and of course the immigration policy, whether he's going to make changes in the illegal immigrants, I'm sorry. But, how has India gauged him so far? Are they okay with, trying to talk to the administration? Because India, Mr. Jaitley himself spoke to a lot of people of his administration. So, how is India, of course, viewing his 100 days?
Well, Indian and U.S. Bilateral relationship is bipartisan in nature. There's not going to be much of a change. And of course, on H-1B visa, we are seeing Donald Trump trying to put in place, America first, hire America, buy America. These were his campaign rhetorics. So he has to do something on this front. And for India, these are a matter of concern. But, U.S.-India relationship is not only about H-1B visa. We have a very deep security relationship with the United States, very deep economic relationship, and very deep people-to-people contact relationship. So I would say that in the long run, we are going to get back to normal, and he will understand the utility of United States, of India, to the American foreign policy in the global context. And we will, I think, be able to find a place with the Trump administration pretty well. But yes, in the short term, there is some amount of concern. But because the foreign policy is bipartisan in nature, and I don't see major turnaround in the U.S.-India bilateral relationship.
In June is hopefully when most probably Prime Minister Modi would be getting to meet Donald Trump, is what the indications are.
I think that will give a big flip to it. So certain amount of indications will be coming. What is the policies, how it is going to evolve. Because among the major powers, you must realize our Prime Minister is the only Prime Minister who has not met him yet. So, when he had a very testy relationship with China, but when Xi Jinping went there, the whole atmosphere changed.
So we'll wait and see how things, of course, go. In June is where the indications are that both the leaders are going to be meeting. Dr. Sinha, thank you so much for joining us. That's all the time I have on this particular story. Thank you so much for joining us on it, though. Of course, one of the main challenges for Trump right now is in the Korean Peninsula, as, of course, Dr. Sinha said. As the annual ASEAN summit kicked off in Manila on Saturday, North Korea test-fired a ballistic missile despite rising tensions in the region. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump condemned the test, saying that Pyongyang has disrespected China in conducting that test. And since the deployment of the THAAD anti-missile system near Seoul, China has been working hard to try and bring the North on the negotiating table to avoid a full blowout situation, which the U.S. has warned off. Here's a report.
South Korea's military has said that North Korea test-fired a ballistic missile on Saturday from a region north of its capital, Pyongyang, even though the test appeared to have failed. The launch has been condemned by South Korea, the US and Japan.
米国の対応について答えることは差し控えたいというふうに思います。ただいずれにしろ日米間で緊密な意見交換を行い、 政策のすり合わせは行ってきているところであります。
북한 정권이 이처럼 전 세계를 상대로 불장난을 지속하면서 비핵화를 거부하는 한 유엔 안보리 등 다양한 차원의 강력한 징벌적 조치에 직면하게 될 것임을 엄중히 경고한다.
Soon after the launch, US President Donald Trump said North Korea disrespected the wishes of China and its president by conducting the launch. Even though the test failed, it is likely to only raise the existing tensions in the Korean peninsula. A UN Security Council meeting on the issue called on the international community to work together to reopen dialogue to avoid risks of misjudgment.
We need to avoid miscalculation and misunderstanding. We need to act now to prevent conflict and achieve sustainable peace.
The U.S. and China have held very productive exchanges on this issue, and we look forward to further actions that build on what China has already done.
In order to change such strategic calculus of Pyongyang and induce changes from within, we could take potent measures such as halting the export and supply of crude oil to North Korea. Let me be clear. Our goal is not bring North Korea to its knees, but to bring it back to the negotiating table for genuine denuclearization.
However, Russia and China cautioned the US against threatening military force to curb North Korea. Russia says the use of force would be completely unacceptable, even as China reiterated the need for dialogue to resolve the escalating crisis.
Воинственная риторика, сопряженная с опрометчивой игрой мускулами, привела к тому, что во всем мире всерьез стали гадать, будет война или нет. Как известно, в условиях такой напряженности один необдуманный либо неверно истолкованный шаг.
第二个基本方向是坚持对话谈判解决的道路。武力解决不了问题，反而会造成更大的灾难。对话谈判是唯一的出路，也是各方的明智的选择。
On Friday, US President Donald Trump had said that a major conflict with North Korea was possible over its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Tension in the Korean peninsula escalated earlier this week when the US and South Korea deployed the THAAD anti-missile system south of Seoul. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
With a little over a week remaining before the second round of the French presidential elections, Marine Le Pen's campaign team launched a new slogan, Choose France. Few days since the first round of results, Le Pen is inching closer to the early leads of centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron, who, if emerges victorious, will be the youngest head of state in France since Napoleon. Here's a look at what has taken place since the first round of the French elections.
There was palpable relief in mainstream Europe on Monday at the success of the independent centrist Emmanuel Macron in the first round of the presidential elections, and a wide assumption that he will defeat the far-right Marine Le Pen in a runoff on May 7th. Unknown to the public until 2 years ago and initially ruled out as a serious contender, Macron came on top after the first round with 24% of the vote against Le Pen's 21.3%.
Le président de tout le peuple de France.
In 2 weeks, I want to become your president, the president of all the people of France, the presidents of patriots against the threat of nationalists.
Despite coming second for Le Pen and her supporters, the score is a disappointment. For so long, she was touted for first place and predicted a score as high as 27%. However, since Sunday, Le Pen has been on the offensive. She has portrayed the 39-year-old former investment banker as weak in the face of Islamist militancy, the heir to unpopular outgoing President François Hollande, and part of the country's privileged elite.
Il fait reposer sur moi désormais.
The result confers on me the immense responsibility of defending the French nation, its unity, its security, its culture, its prosperity, and its independence.
A few days after the results, her campaign unveiled a new slogan, Choose France, reinforcing her push towards protectionism, national identity and secularism, and away from communitarianism, immigration, and the sway of European Union.
Choose France is the only option that Marine proposes to French people, for whom it's in their interest to make this choice. It's a choice for the future, for solidarity, for protection against a fratricidal and inhumane project. The only choice that will protect the French people and bring back prosperity to our country.
39-year-old Emmanuel Macron, meanwhile, believes in economic liberalism, a reformed France and a more flexible European Union. Jean-Claude Juncker, the president of the European Commission, broke protocol to congratulate Macron, wishing the centrist well ahead of his May 7th presidential runoff against Le Pen. The European Commission said the choice to support Macron was an obvious one, as the choice was between a candidate who defends what Europe represents and a candidate that aims to destroy Europe.
France is a central pillar of the European Union. It's one of our founding countries and one of the countries which incarnates and symbolizes all the values on which European integration is based. Yesterday evening, European Union Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker congratulated Emmanuel Macron on the results precisely because he is the candidate who represents those values which he campaigned for.
Macron, a former protege of President François Hollande, is widely expected to be able to build a broader voting base than anti-establishment Marine Le Pen. This is due to the fact that many of the France supporters of conservative François Fillon and far-left Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who collectively attracted 39.5% of the vote, are expected to now switch to Macron. But the young leader is not taking any moment for granted.
I'm a living example that the people making predictions are wrong. The same ones who are saying things are in the bag for me to take them at a face value. No, nothing's definitely won. You have to fight. You have to want it. You have to explain. You have to carry it. That's what I'm going to do over the next 15 days. And I hope for the next 5 years.
Marine Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, has already said she should have adopted a more aggressive campaign style in the manner of Donald Trump. But she has little time left and may not find enough voters to win over. It is worth remembering that when she got the first round of elections in 6 of France's 13 regions in 2015, she looked on course to change the course of French politics. But be it Macron or Le Pen, both are political outsiders and each is looking ahead to a biting reality. If they want to pass laws, they need lawmakers on their side. And right now, their two parties combined command only 3 lawmakers out of 925 in France's parliament. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's shift gears now and bring you up to speed with more international news updates in Globe Watch.
Venezuela has announced that it will leave the Organization of American States to protest a Washington-led campaign against the country's socialite government. The announcement came after the regional body voted to hold a foreign ministers' meeting to debate the state of the crisis-stricken nation. Leftist-run Venezuela and the OAS have been clashing for months, and the OAS head has said the country should be suspended from the body if it does not hold general elections at the earliest amid a punishing economic crisis. The meeting was called by 16 countries including the United States and regional heavyweights Brazil and Mexico. With one of the world's highest inflation rates, Venezuela is gripped in a severe economic and social crisis which have sparked violent protests, leaving dozens dead. China on Wednesday launched its first domestically built aircraft carrier, which will join an existing one bought from the Ukraine. State media said the carrier, designed in China and built in the northeastern port of Dalian, is not expected to enter service until 2020. Its launch follows China's celebration of the 68th birthday of the founding of the Chinese Navy, and it comes amid renewed tensions between North Korea and the United States over Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs, and also Beijing's assertiveness in the South China Sea. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, accompanied by his Brexit chief negotiator Michel Barnier, met with Prime Minister Theresa May in London on Wednesday to discuss Britain's exit from the European Union. May, who has called a snap election for June 8th, invited Juncker to discuss the process of withdrawal. On Saturday, the other 27 EU leaders will meet in Brussels to agree their negotiating positions, by which the Commission's Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier will stir the talks with London. The EU expects to start talks after the British election. More than 2,000 migrants trying to reach Europe were rescued from the central Mediterranean in a single day. Many of them saved by crew members of Phoenix, a rescue ship operated by the Malta-based aid group. According to the International Organization for Migration, nearly 32,000 refugees have arrived.
And giants in 2004, the Argentine has established himself as the best player in world football and has scored over 40 goals each season since 2009. With his latest stunning final second winner in El Clasico against Real Madrid, he sent Luis Enrique's side to the top of the La Liga table. And it only took Messi 12 minutes to extend his Barca goal tally against bottom of the table Osasuna, breaking in behind the opposition defense to lob over the goalkeeper as the crowd chanted his name. The Zurich Classic began on Thursday with a new switch by introducing a two-man team format. The 72-hole stroke play format includes foursomes during the first and third rounds and four-ball best ball during the second and fourth rounds. The field consists of 80 teams, which will drop to 35 at the conclusion of the second round. With the change in format, this year's event has attracted 6 players ranked in the world's top 10 and 15 of the top 30. Some of the top seeds in this year's field are Jason Day, Hideki Matsuyama, Jordan Spieth and Ricky Fowler. Burnley midfielder Joey Barton has been banned from football for 18 months after admitting to a Football Association charge in relation to betting. The 34-year-old has been fined £30,000 and warned about his future conduct. He was charged with breaking FA rules for placing 1,260 bets on matches between 26th of March 2006 and 13th of May 2016. Barton plans to appeal against the length of the suspension, saying that this was not match-fixing and his integrity should not be questioned. Barton also called on the FA to do more to tackle the culture of gambling in football. Former world number 1 Maria Sharapova will find out on the 16th of May if she has been given a wild card for the French Open. The 30-year-old Russian's 15-month ban for using meldonium ended on Wednesday when she played in the first round of the Stuttgart Open as a wildcard entry. French Tennis Federation president said that he would call Sharapova before the decision was made public on Facebook. Sharapova is a 2-time winner at Roland Garros, which starts on the 28th of May. And that's all we have for you on World Panorama. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.